So, where the hell is that? Okay, so right, it's right here in the flip, right? Elements of your grade, right? So there are going to be two major papers, right? The first paper is going to be a reading of one of the texts we're going to be looking at in Reading the World. And there is going to be a theme that we're going to be examining in the texts we're going to be reading, right? So most of them are going to be about community and about building community and community responsibility, right? So you're going to do a reading of one of those texts for paper one. You're going to do a draft, and then you're going to do the final paper, right? The final paper is going to be 1,000 to 1,500 words, so that'll be roughly 4 or 5 pages. The draft will have to be 75% of that length, so it'll have to be about 750 words. For paper two, you're going to be writing a 2,000 to 3,000 word paper, so that's going to be roughly 7 to 9 pages. And that's going to be a research assignment, right? So, don't freak out about the 7 to 9 pages, right? Because you're going to be quoting from sources as well. And the response paper, we're going to be doing short response papers throughout the semester that will give you material to draw on when you try to write the bigger papers, right? So we're going to be doing a lot of practicing, and in class we're going to be doing a lot of low stakes ungraded writing as well, right? So not everything that you write is going to be written for a grade. Some of it is going to be done just so you have your thoughts together during the class period, right? Any other questions about the course or about the syllabus?
Are most of our papers turned in online or like hard copy?
All of your papers are going to be turned in online. In fact, how many of you have worked with Georgia View before? Okay, a couple. So about half of you are familiar with the system, right? And we all know that it is a strange and wonky system. But yeah, let me just sort of briefly go to the Georgia View site to show you where to turn things in if you're not familiar with the system, right? Okay. So let's see, let's go to course home, and it does you no good to see the instructor view. And we wait, and we wait, and we wait. If nothing else, trying to get technology to work teaches us patience, yes? Okay, so first thing to note is that pretty much any materials that you'll need for the course are here in the content browser, right? So I've got, if you happen to lose the paper copy of the syllabus, it's here in the syllabus and assignments folder, right? We also have directions for all of the other assignments already posted here. So if you want to look ahead and see what you're going to have to do, it's all there. Now, I do have a separate folder for lecture videos, so if you miss class or if you want to go back and review something from a particular day, right, they'll all be here listed by date.
Do you post those within like the same week or?
Yeah, it'll usually be within 24 hours. So it'll post typically the next day. Monday and Wednesday are my big teaching days. I have 3 classes kind of back to back. But I have a great big span of office hours time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so it'll mostly get posted then. I also do have, for each of the readings in Reading the World, a couple of resources for each of you to help you with background and context, right? So like for the reading from Confucius, that'll be the first thing in Reading the World we're going to be doing. There's a link to a PBS documentary about Confucius's life and thought to give you a little context, and also a video of a Confucian religious ceremony, right? To give you some sense of what that all kind of looks like in practice. And you can find all that kind of stuff here. Now, as far as turning in your shit, right? And that is the most important thing in this class, right? If you do not turn something in, what is the grade you are going to get on it? A 0, yes. As long as you turn something in and it's not plagiarized, we'll go over in a minute what constitutes plagiarism in this class, right? As long as you turn something in and it's not plagiarized, you will get some credit for it, right? So the only way to fail this class is to not turn things in, right? I can more or less guarantee you that if you show up and you turn everything in, you will get at least a C, right? And remember that C's get degrees, yes? Okay, so turning in your stuff, right? So you'll click on the Assessments tab up here. You'll go to Assignments, and so whatever the current assignment is, it'll look different for you. Like the only thing you'll be able to see are the assignments that you're currently able to turn in, right? Right now, there's nothing turned on for you to turn in because you don't have anything to turn in until next week. But yeah, there will be a blue link when this goes live, and you just click on whatever that is and turn in whatever the assignment is, right? You just upload it to the system. And if you're having problems with Georgia View, I am not tech support, right? I don't know how any of this works, right? I teach English. That is not my department. That is not my job. So what you want to do if your Georgia View is not working is contact the person who administers it at alla.yemelyanov@gsw.edu. And if she can't resolve your problem for you, she will tell you who can, right? She is in a better position to know this than I am.
Okay, so what happens if we're like trying to like turn something in that it's like due that night?
Okay, if you're
Can we,
trying...
like send it through like an email to you, or?
Yes, if you are trying to turn something in and you can't for whatever reason, then just let me know, right? In general, I want things on their due dates, mostly because, right, I have kind of a limited window in which to grade things, right? It's kind of like time management for me, right? So, you know, if you're giving me something that is well outside of the window of time I've set aside to grade something, I'm not going to be able to get back to you quickly, and I won't be able to give you the same kind of feedback, right? But if, for whatever reason, you cannot get something in on time, please tell me rather than just kind of sitting on it and letting it go, right? I am willing to be flexible with due dates if necessary, because I realize that people do have other responsibilities outside of class, right? Many of you might have jobs. Some of you might be taking care of a child or a relative. You know, so, you know, that sort of thing, like, you know, when those kinds of responsibilities intrude on your schoolwork, right? Right, let me know, and we'll try to work, you know, we'll try to work something out. Okay, so everybody's clear on how to turn things in. Any other questions about the course? Okay, then let's just quickly go over policies here, just a couple of things, and kind of like, then we'll talk a little bit about what it is we're doing here. So I do have an attendance policy. You're permitted 3 unexcused absences without direct consequences for your grade, right? You lose 2 points in your final average for each absence beyond the third. So think of these as being like sick days or personal days at a job, right? Your employer might give you, you know, a certain limited pool of sick days to use when you are actually sick, right? These work more or less the same way, right? You don't have to tell me why you were out necessarily, although there's a caveat to that, which we'll get to in a minute. And bringing me a doctor's note isn't going to buy you more absences, right? However, if you are going to be out for an extended time, or if you have an absence that you know is coming up, right? It's like, look, my family is going to Las Vegas for, you know, 4 days or whatever, you know, tell me ahead of time so we can arrange it for you to get things done, right? Now, the caveat that I wanted to talk about is if you are feeling the slightest bit sick, right, should you come to class? Do not, right? If you are feeling fever or chills or runny nose or sore throat or headache, right? Vomiting, nausea, diarrhea, do not come to class. Go to the health center, get a COVID test before you go anywhere else, right? And tell your instructors that that is what you have done so that we know, right? And that we can make arrangements for you. Again, like this is about keeping everybody safe, right? Not just in this classroom, but everybody that's connected to this classroom in some way. Okay, accommodations. So if you have a disability, you never have to have any kind of awkward conversation with me about it, right? We don't have to discuss it. It's none of my business. What you do need to do, if you need accommodations for this class, is go to the Disability Services office. It's on the 3rd floor of Sanford Hall, because of course we put Disability Services on the 3rd floor, because we're geniuses like that. And talk to Evelyn Oliver. She'll have you fill out a form. You'll have to, provide some documentation of your disability and what accommodations you're permitted as a result. And that'll get to me. She'll never tell me what your disability is because, like I said, that's none of my damn business, right? And you'll get the accommodations. Okay, last thing I want to make sure I go over here. Academic dishonesty. So here's what is going to constitute academic dishonesty in this course, right? Oh, I completely forgot to mention as well. My name is actually pronounced Moyer, so Dr. Moyer. And when your instructors with your instructors, if you don't know whether they have a PhD or not, default to professor. And if you know your instructor has a PhD, call them doctor. It's not that big a deal, but like when you spent 8 years of your life getting an advanced degree, you want people to acknowledge it. So yeah, don't refer to your instructors as Mr., Mrs., Miss, or Ms., right? My office hours, right? They're listed here in the syllabus. And of course, this marker's no good. Because why would we put good markers out for the first day of class? Everything's great. All right, well, this one is also inadequate, but slightly less so. Okay, so on Mondays and Wednesdays, like I said, I'm busier on Mondays and Wednesdays. I have more classes, so I have less time to meet with students on those days. But I am still in my office from 11 to 12 on Mondays and Wednesdays. So essentially for about an hour after this class, right? On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I am in my office from 10 to 12, and then again from 2 to 4. So office hours aren't for me to sit in my office doing my own work and or twiddling my thumbs or playing video games. Office hours are for you to come and ask me questions that you have about assignments. They're for students, right? So if there's something that you want to talk to me about, this is when I am in my office, right? This is when I have to be in my office. Now, these are the times I have to be in my office. They're not the only times I can be in my office, right? So if, for whatever reason, you need to meet with me and your class schedule or whatever schedule doesn't allow for you to come to see me during these times, let me know and we'll make I can arrange to be there at a different time, right? And in terms of contacting me, right, if you need to contact me about something, the best place to do so is my campus email, michael.moir@gsw.edu. Do not try to email me through Georgia View. I know there's a little Georgia View email widget. I never check that, right? So if you try to contact me through that, I'm just not going to see it. I will generally respond to student emails within 24 hours. A little slower on weekends, right? Because, weekend, right? But yeah, during the week, you can expect a response within 24 hours. Okay. I was going to talk about academic dishonesty, right?
Yes.
Yes, so I should do that now. All right. So here's what will constitute academic dishonesty in this course, right? So any attempt to turn in work either that you did not do or that is not original to this class counts as academic dishonesty. So this first category includes things like copy and paste from the internet, getting, unauthorized help from a friend, or buying a paper from an internet source, right? And one thing I do want to note about buying a paper is that usually all the people who are writing those papers are doing is cutting and pasting from the internet. So it's actually easier to detect than people might think. And if you're spending money on that, you are getting ripped off. So it's a waste of money and can cause you to fail the course, right? So don't do that. Now, when I mean work that is not original to this class, right? Sometimes you may get an assignment that is maybe similar to something you did in a previous class, right? So you think, oh, I can just submit this thing I already did. Well, no, you can't, right? Not without the express permission of both instructors who would be affected, right? Both the instructor who gave you the original assignment and the instructor who would be receiving the new assignment, right? Now, there's a reason for all of this, right? It's not just to make your life difficult. The assignments are all designed to teach you particular skills that are going to help you not just in this class but in future classes, right? And if you are not doing the assignment, you're not learning the skills that we're trying to teach you. And then when you have to do these things again in later courses, you're still not going to know how to do them. And so you're going to have to keep cheating, right? And digging yourself deeper into a hole. And eventually, probably going to get caught, even if you're not caught right away, right? So remember, this isn't about, punishment. This is about making sure that you're ready for the next stages in your education, right? This is a pretty foundational course here. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to be doing in this class is going to transfer to future courses no matter what your major is, right? No matter what your major is, you're going to have to write papers. You're going to have to do research. Okay, so any questions about any of that? Okay, great. So let's do a quick little writing exercise. Right, no pressure, not graded. But I am going to want people to be willing to read what they wrote, right? So what I want you to do is just take the next 10 minutes. I want you to think about what your greatest strengths are as a writer, right? What are you good at? Yeah, just dig deep and really think about this, right? It's like what sorts of things have you been praised for by other students, by your instructors, right? What sorts of things do you know you can do well? What sorts of things do you feel most confident doing, right? so what have you got? Who wants to start?
I'll go first, that's fine.
Okay.
I put my greatest strength as writer by comparing and explaining the differences within the topic while also staying on the topic.
Okay.
And then I also tend to stick to one single style of pronouns and a point of view while writing. Another strength I would say is elaborating on why I chose a quote and how the quote supports the topic.
Okay, great. So it looks so you're thinking like your big strengths could be summed up kind of as consistency, right? And keeping things relevant, right? And making sure your reader knows why you chose particular things. All right, good. Yeah, that's great. Yes.
I said I do very well at connecting main ideas to other abstract thoughts that may not be as clearly visible in the text.
Okay.
I also love to look at content from different angles/perspectives to have a deep understanding of what it is that I'm reading.
Okay. So we could say that your big strength then is not getting locked into a single perspective, right? That you're able to remain open-minded about things for a while. Okay, good. That's great. That is actually something that the English Romantic poet John Keats called negative capability, which is something we're going to talk about a little more in future sessions. Yes, Elena, you have your hand up.
I really love personal opinions. My greatest strengths are writing about what I see in a picture,
Okay.
or why I see something in my way, or anything about my life. Just those are my strengths.
Okay, so you're good at connecting analysis to your own lived experience. All right, good. What else you guys got? Everybody's gonna have to talk. Yeah.
I feel as a writer, I'm good at getting a point across in an exciting way, so as readers and listeners remain intrigued during the entire length of whatever I'm trying to get across.
Okay. So you feel like you're good at engaging a reader. All right, excellent. Who's next? Don't make me pick on people.
Okay,
All right,
I'll
Trinity.
go. Basically, I'm kind of like all of them. I engage with the reader as well, and I stay
Mhm.
on the main point that the text is giving. And like she said, I like when there's a picture and we have to analyze it and write about it
Okay.
and connect yourself to the picture or other things that are happening in the world.
Okay, great. Anybody?
I don't read mine, but it's not. I really don't want to read mine. You gotta go.
Everybody's got to do it.
I feel like some of my greatest strengths as a writer don't exactly compare to others, but I'm not the best writer, but I do well with native word count and getting the writing done proficiently. My vocabulary is also a very strong benefit I have when it comes down to writing.
Okay. See, and a strong vocabulary is actually a really good asset for a writer, right? Yeah, that's half the battle there, right? Excellent. Who wants to go next? Okay, you in the yes. Well, you were Shelby. Okay, yes.
I don't know if I'm good about writing what I feel strongly about. If I feel good, if I have a good opinion about that topic, I feel like I can write more. I can put more into it if I feel strongly about a topic.
Okay, so you have an easier time writing. You do it well when you actually feel strongly connected to the topic. Okay. Last two. All right, Rendaria, go ahead.
I guess my first strength would be staying on topic. I guess the preparation for the writing, gathering the information.
Okay.
So that I can write.
Yeah, that's huge, right? Writing is not something that's easy to do in just one go, right? How many of us are guilty of the oh shit, it's due tomorrow syndrome, and we just stay up all night trying to write a paper that fits the word count. We're just trying to cram enough information in, right, so that we can go to bed and turn this damn thing in tomorrow, right? And when I was your age, I did a lot of the same thing, right? But how much better could that paper be, right? If you took a little bit of time every day the week before it's due, right? And maybe just try to write a page a day. And then you can go back and see what you've already written, do a little bit of revision, make sure all your materials are together, right? Just like a little bit of time management can actually help you write much better papers. And this is something that we're going to be working on and going over in this course as well. All right, Chris, it's down to you.
I feel like I'm better when it comes to like writing about people,
Okay,
like about emotion.
okay.
That's it.
Okay, so you're more interested in writing about people than you are about things.
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you guys think I asked you to think about writing in terms of what you're good at rather than in terms of what you're not good at?
Because you're going to make us do stuff that we're not good at.
Well, if that was the case, right, then what I would want to know is what you're not good at, right? What I'd be trying to do is diagnose what your weaknesses are, right? But why do you think I want you writing about what you're good at instead of thinking about what you're bad at?
So we can use those strengths in our writing.
Yeah. And I want you to be thinking about writing in terms of strengths, right? Rather than in terms of weaknesses or deficits. Like, we tend to get into this mindset where we think we're not good at something and we'll never be good at something because we weren't good at it right away, right? Like, I'll give you a personal example here. Like, when I was a student, I was complete shit at math, right? I'm still not particularly good at math. And for years, I told myself that I'm just not a math person, right? I'm just not capable of grasping mathematics. And that's completely untrue. I just didn't like math. I didn't find it very interesting. And so I didn't try very hard. And, just kind of skated by doing the minimum amount of work. So if I had applied myself in math, of course, I would understand it a lot better than I do now. A couple of you play sports, right? So the two of you play soccer, right? I see you're wearing a softball t-shirt. Does anybody else play sports in here? Okay, what do you play?
Softball.
You also play softball. What about you?
Volleyball.
Volleyball, okay. So how many of you were good at your sport right away? All right, Mr. Confidence here. What do you play, Carmen?
Oh, I stopped doing sports after I graduated high school, but I
Okay.
did gymnastics.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I played softball.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Those of you who were good right away, right?
No, I'm kidding.
Were you better, though, after getting some practice?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Does anybody play a musical instrument? What do you play?
Yeah.
Okay, you play the piano. Anybody else? What did you sound like when you first started playing the piano?
Shit.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to plonk out the itsy bitsy spider, right? And it's, yeah. I mean, I used to play drums and a little bit of guitar, right? And yeah, of course, right? The long-haired beardy guy in the Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt used to be a musician, right? Big fucking surprise. But yeah, like drums I picked up pretty quickly, right? Guitar was a lot harder for me, in part because I have small hands and stumpy fingers, right? So, just like forming some of the chords was difficult. Playing certain notes together was difficult. But, that doesn't make, the fact that it's a little bit more difficult, right, doesn't make it impossible, right? Right, with practice, you can overcome those kinds of deficits. And writing is the same way, right? It's like think of any academic subject, right? Think of it as like working almost kind of like muscle memory, right? Like the more you practice it, the more you work at it, the better you are going to get. And that is one of the big reasons why we're going to be doing so much writing in this class. Right? You're going to get a lot of practice and a lot of feedback, and you're going to improve. right, compared to where you are now, right? Even if even if you are in a strong position, and I do want you thinking in terms of your strengths, right? But the whole goal is to take what you can already do and make that better. And then to help you self-diagnose the things that maybe you do need to work on and help make those better as well, right? So to kind of jump into this process and to get us thinking a little bit about language, I'm going to write 2 sentences on the board that I want you to read them together as a sequence, right? And I want you to think about what these 2 sentences say. The last man on earth sat in a room. There was a knock on the door. What's weird about this?
It contradicts each other.
Okay, why?
Because it says there's a last man, but then there's a knock on the door.
There's a woman.
Okay, yeah, that's a possibility, right? The last man on earth, right? That's ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
You could be using man sort of generally to use mankind, which is something we don't do that much anymore, right? That's to talk about humankind. We tend to use the word, the words like human to talk about people generally now. Or we could be referring to just the last male human on earth, right? So that knock on the door, yeah, could be a woman. What else could it be?
Animal.
What's that?
Animal.
Do animals knock?
Woodpeckers.
Yeah.
Woodpeckers do, yeah, woodpeckers do. Uh-huh. But when we think about the action of knocking on a door, right, it's usually a human action, right? So if it's not a human, why do human beings knock on doors?
To be polite.
Yeah, to be polite, to announce that you're there and you want to enter, right? So it's a sort of like, it's an etiquette thing, right? Why does a woodpecker knock on a door?
You get bugs.
Yeah, it's looking for bugs, right? Why does a bear knock on a door? Yeah. So animals have completely different logic for they're driven by impulse, right? To do things like that. If a human or human-like creature knocks on a door, then it's part of some kind of recognized code of behavior, right? So whatever is knocking on the door, if it's not human, what would we tend to assume it at least understands?
Of what it would be.
That someone's in there.
Yeah, that someone's in there whose attention they want, right? And to get that person's attention, they knock on the door. So if it's not something human, it's something that at least understands human codes of behavior, right? So it could be a woman, not the last man on earth, that's not the last woman sitting in a room, right? It could also simply be some kind of alien creature, right? The point that I'm trying to make here, is this enough information in these 2 sentences to determine what's going on? Yeah, this requires interpretation, right? This requires us to question the very words with which this is framed, right? When we say man, what do we mean by man? When we say knock, Are we talking about like a formal door knock, or are we talking about the kind of the impulsive action of an animal, right? And all language really kind of works this way, right? All language requires some level of interpretation. And much of what we're going to be doing in this class is analyzing language, interpreting language, and trying to resolve ambiguity, right? The biggest, most important reason you are required to take English classes as an undergraduate, no matter what your major is that the one thing that this discipline is really good for, the one thing that this discipline teaches us to do well, is to come up with responses to questions that don't have clear right or wrong answers, right? Given what we have in this sentence, there's no reason that Hannah's answer was any more correct than Chris's, right? What we need to learn to do is try to muster evidence for particular interpretations and be able to defend them, right? In order to make the best decisions we can when there's no clear choice, right? Because unfortunately, in your lives as workers and as citizens, beyond your lives as students, most of the questions you're going to be asked, right, are going to be of that nature. They're going to be these kinds of open-ended questions that don't have a clear right or wrong answer. So you're just going to be looking for the best answer you can with the information that you have, right? Now, the second thing I want to add to this is that meaning tends to be context dependent, right? What does that mean? If meaning is context dependent, does everybody understand what I mean by that? Okay, you're nodding, Henderson. What do I mean?
The meaning and context. Context is from obviously something you read, so it's a fact, so it has meaning.
Okay.
But at the same time, you can get lost with like abstract thoughts within how you interpret the content, like the text.
Okay. So let's kind of take that back for a second and think about what exactly we mean by context. What is context? What does context mean?
Like information, like you're reading in like a book and stuff.
Explaining the meaning of it, maybe context, explaining it.
Context is one thing that can help us explain the meaning of something, right? Basically, the context is the circumstances surrounding whatever it is we're looking at, right? Whether we're talking about, say, historical circumstances or, genre circumstances, right? So, if we, I don't know, have any of you ever seen the movie Alien? Okay, you've seen Alien. Okay, anybody else? Well, then I just don't know what to do with you. Okay. So, Alien has a lot of the external trappings of a science fiction movie, right? It takes place, on a starship in outer space, right? It's in the far future, and the crew of the ship is being menaced by an alien creature, right? But if we think of Alien as a horror movie rather than as a science fiction movie, then the way we interpret the film is different, right? We can also use kind of the circumstances of the era in which the movie was made, right? Late 1970s, post-Vietnam, people's faith in government is eroding and everything is starting to be run by corporations. We can use those circumstances as ways of interpreting the movie as well, right? So context refers to any of the kind of surrounding circumstances that help us determine what's going on in a situation. To give you another example of this, have any of you ever read The Hobbit? Okay, that's two of you. All right, this side of the room is doing great here. Okay, so at the very beginning of the novel, right, so Bilbo Baggins is standing outside of his hobbit hole. He's smoking his pipe, because apparently that's what he does. And the wizard Gandalf comes up to him, and Bilbo says, "Good morning," to Gandalf. And he meant it. And then Gandalf starts questioning him, says, "Well, what do you mean by good morning? Do you mean that it is a good morning, or that you feel good this morning, or that it is a morning to be good on?" So he asks this because Bilbo isn't giving him any context clues as to what possible meanings of good morning there are, right? Bilbo then says good morning to him again and turns his back on him and starts pointedly reading his letters, right? In that case, the meaning is clear. He's given a clear context or clue, right? That good morning means go away, right? We're done talking. It's goodbye. But context always changes the way we interpret whatever we're looking at or whatever we're reading, right? So, my wife's cousin, several years ago, was passing out flyers that had this printed on them. "Jumps for joy, leaving a footprint on a child's heart." What does this sound like it means if you don't have any context for it?
Like you're jumping on a child.
And you're happy about
It sounds like you're stomping on a kid's heart and it's fun and you're happy about it, right? Now, what was actually going on here? Now, this was probably not a great way to phrase this, right? You know, Lexi was 14 and she meant well, right? She was doing a jump rope-a-thon to raise money to dig wells in a village in Africa, right?
Okay.
So when we learn the context for this, right, we can see how this still maybe is an infelicitous choice of words, right? But we can at least see how she got there. Otherwise, yeah, this sounds cruel and horrific, right? When making snacks, include your kids. Again, like, what does this sound like if you have no context for it?
Like put the kids in the snack.
Yeah. Yeah, you need the context. So this is the headline for a newspaper article advising parents to, have their kids help them in the kitchen, right? But if you don't have the context for it, it sounds like it could mean eat your kids, right? So language is slippery and is always getting away from us in various ways. And the big thing that we are going to be working on in this course is coming up with the best possible interpretations we can of, these potentially slippery verbal artifacts, right? So does anybody have any questions about anything? Okay, so I'm going to let you guys go a little bit early today. I want everybody to read the first chapter of Writing Analytically for next time. And I also want you to let me know if you don't have the book yet, so that I can send you a PDF of the first chapter just so that everybody's caught up, right? I'd rather people write things down. In part because writing things down improves our memories, right? I'm not, again, just not trying to be mean, just, there are reasons why we do that. I will always try to explain why I want you to